Alright, today I'm going to talk about this Lexus IS 300. Pretty much bulletproof. They knew what they were doing when they built these things. Now this one was recently purchased. It only had 16,000 miles on it from, you guessed it, a little old lady. As per usual, you can see it's made in Japan. There's no wear and tear. And you know, there's been nothing in the back seat except perhaps some small dogs. I can see some dog hair there. Since it's all-wheel drive, you don't have to worry about getting stuck anywhere, but it's still got a lot of acceleration. Nobody wants to make sedans anymore because they make so much money making SUVs. This is all-wheel drive, so you're going to get a little bit worse gas mileage, but if it was an SUV, it would get a lot worse gas mileage. He drove it over here from Massachusetts. He got 27.2 miles per gallon. Now that's real gas mileage, which is good for something that's this fast with like 255 horsepower. That's all-wheel drive. You're always going to get worse gas mileage with all-wheel drive. The ground clearance leaves much to be desired if you're going off-road in this thing. As we go under the hood, you'd see an interesting engine if you didn't have the stupid beauty cover on it. Let's take it off. Get out of the way. Whee! Now you can see the heart of the car. Toyota knew what they were doing. These engines run. They don't have any problem carbonating up. Some of the earlier ones did, but not this one that was made in 4 of 2016. Now they got it with such low mileage. It's got 20-something thousand miles on it now. Only thing they've done is change the oil every 5,000 miles. They're low maintenance, so they get to be really old. And this is one reason I tell people, you want a Lexus, get a V6. Look at the brake master cylinder. It's a plain brake master cylinder. If it ever wears out, they still don't cost that much money to replace. You get yourself a V8 Lexus. Man, some of those master cylinders, you gotta buy assembly. Some of them are $1,500, $1,800 just for the part. These aren't that way. Plenty fast enough. And of course, they get a lot better gas mileage than the V8 engine does. And like I said, of course, it's a modern engine. Everything in here is solid aluminum. You don't have to mess around with a stupid timing belt. It's got a timing chain. These things are really well designed and built in Japan. The whole deal. It's not put together someplace else. It's actually done in Japan where they do it right. And being part luxury sedan, part sports sedan, pretty well set up. Personally, I love the black and silver. If you're an Oakland Raiders fan, yeah, I'm sure you're going to love this car, right? Interestingly enough, you can see it still has a CD player in it. And as we start it up, you know it's going to start right up. You can see it's got air-conditioned seats, various levels, from all the way from high, medium, low to off, both sides. If you want to drive hard, you can turn the traction control off. If you're worried about driving in the snow, you can put it in the snow. So it'll start out in the lower gear and it won't spin. So it's got both all-wheel drive and snow all-wheel drive. You're not going to get stuck in this thing. Granted, if the snow's too deep, you're not going to be able to drive over it with a low front end, but you can't have everything. And I'll tell you the truth, if you turn the track off, you're really not going to have any problems driving this thing if you want to drive a little faster. It's still got the Lexus unbelievably designed technological marvel all-wheel drive system, so you really probably won't need to use that traction control if you know how to drive even one bit. An older car, since it's a 2016, I mean, you got a small backup camera and a small little screen. It's not big like the modern ones. Got the obligatory sunroof, moonroof, whatever you want to call it. Check the back seat. Even though this seat's back, you can see there's a lot of room for people. It's a very luxurious car to ride around in. If you want to hire a chauffeur to drive you around. Got this used, so they want me to check out to see if the Lexus dealer gave him a fast one, which I kind of doubt, but out we go. For intelligent diagnosis, round and around she goes. Diagnosis is everything IS 300, gasoline, knows the mileage in kilometers, and we will do a smart scan, do everything. And while we're waiting, man, these seats are comfy. I can see zooming around in this thing. You're not going to be thrown in the seat. Just stick right in. An awful lot of things this is going to go through. It's a very complex car, as you can see. Look at all these things it's going through. Now, we're going through and we said, okay, there's a few red things. A lot of them don't mean that much. So we'll start with the ABS system, see what it is. We'll check the fault code, low power supply voltage. I see that all the time. Somebody changes the battery, they don't reset everything. It works fine, but we'll look at the rest of the stuff. Four-wheel drive code, probably be another memory code. Sure enough, low power supply voltage, same thing, we'll clear that. We'll look at the smart access, probably all gonna be a low power thing. Remote start, communication, malfunction, Yeah, a lot of times these remote start things will stick once in a while. There's a speed signal malfunction from the transmission, but it works fine, so we'll erase that too. These are all glitchy things that mean absolutely nothing. A lot of it is because the battery's been replaced at some point in time. Nobody bothered to reset anything. So we'll start it up and we'll look at live data. Here we go. Read data stream. Select everything, and you can see, okay? Look down here. There's 277 points of data. Color coded, so if everything's blue, we're gonna be happy. Everything's still blue. Transmission stuff, it's all still blue. And realize one thing while you see this. As you can see, the turbo type doesn't have any information because, guess what? It's not turbocharged. You know what that means? This engine can last forever. It's got plenty enough horsepower. You don't have to worry about the turbo burning the engine out. So you're better off getting a good engine with no turbo than a little piece of crap that's got a turbo that makes it spin really fast and then wear out quicker. Pause the hood, take it for a spin. Now, it's relatively low to the ground car, but you can see these horrible bumps in these Rhode Island roads. You really don't feel them in this car. It has a suspension system that gets rid of the bumps really well for a vehicle that's got a relatively short wheelbase, because it is a sporty car. Now we're coming out to a big road here. Nobody's coming. Let's step on the gas and, hey, woo! This thing is fun to drive. It gets up and goes, and it handles like a dream. You turn the steering wheel, the car immediately goes there. Unlike that Suburban I had the other day that we sailed around the corners, this thing hugs the corners. All in all, this is a fun car to drive. I mean, you step on the gas, yeah, it goes. Makes a nice sound too. So here we have it, a beautiful sports sedan. Little old lady owned it. Strangely enough, she traded it in and bought a Honda CR-V. I mean, you go from a luxury sedan like this to a CR-V that definitely does not ride like a luxury anything, but if you don't want an SUV and you can find one of these from a little old lady, my advice is to gobble it up. Get better gas mods, they're more fun to drive, but everybody wants an SUV. Even the grannies in this case. Maybe she's got a bunch of grandkids, I don't know. Here's a 2019 Honda Passport. By the time I'm done, you're gonna know more than you probably want to know, but you'll know the truth. The first truth is, it's an actual Honda. Originally, the Passports were Honda's first venture into SUVs. All they did was buy a Zuzu rodeos, called them Honda Passports, and sold them. They were underpowered piles of junk. They had a 4-cylinder engine originally with a whopping 120 horsepower on a big heavy vehicle. They couldn't get out of their own way. Then the frames all started to rot, and then Zuzu pulled out of the United States. Honda didn't sell anymore, and for a few years, Honda didn't sell Passports. At the top of the problems the original ones had being Zuzu rodeos, and not really a Honda, even though they were called Honda Passport, they were full-frame vehicles like a truck. The frames all rotted, and so Zuzu, rather than fixing them, they pulled out of the United States, and Honda said, pfft. But then they decided, let's make our own SUV, which this 2019 Passport is. It's a real SUV, designed and built by Honda. And unlike the original Passport / rodeo, this does not have a frame on body. This is a unibody construction vehicle, just like modern cars. I'm a Toyota man myself, but a lot of people buy these fancier Acura that are just a Honda because they say the Hondas and the Acuras ride better, and they do ride quite a bit better. So the technology in this thing is more or less Acura MDX type technology, which have excellent rides. These things ride fine, not like the old Isuzus. The old Isuzus are great for people that wanted a truck to bang around in. They do say that they have an off-road setting inside, I'll show you, because it is all-wheel drive. All kinds of buttons, off-road, snow. Now, yeah, I understand the snow. You don't want to get stuck in the snow, great. But really, this close to the ground, you're not going to be climbing over boulders anytime soon. Where do they make these things? Well, they're not made by Zuzu. They're made by Honda. This baby was made in Alabama. Okay, they're put together in Alabama. The engines and trannies come from Japan. They just put them together there. But they do a much better job putting them together in Alabama than Mercedes does in their plant in Alabama. If you remember that video I made of the guy's $170,000 Mercedes where the paint didn't match and it rattled. No, the Japanese keep their quality control good no matter where they put them together. He didn't like the big wheels because they were big wheels with low profile tires. He kept the wheels, but he took the low profile tires and put ones that have wider sidewalls. It rides better and you're going to have less problem with flats. That actually makes sense. Because really, low profile tires, you can watch my video about them, it's a showy thing. Well, you know, I race around That's baloney. Look at race cars. There's not a single race car out there that's got a low profile tire. It's basically a show thing. BMWs have them. They cost a fortune. They break all the time. You're better if you get one of these to put the wider sidewalls on. Now, this is a modern car. It's 2019, but look, I like it. An actual parking brake. Not one of those stupid electronic crappers that's going to break. Simple. It works. Why change something that's simple and works? Honda agrees with me on that one. It's got all kinds of modern electronics on it. Now, if you check this out, it's Pioneer. It's not stock, but this man is wise. This is a sport version. It doesn't come with Android Auto stuff. If he wanted to buy one, he would have to pay $5 grand more. So instead, smart man, he paid $100 for this Pioneer Android and put it in himself, and it works fine. Well, open the door. He's a big man. He's got the seat back. But look at all the space even with it packed. These are ginormous vehicles. Just don't park in the sun all the time or the seats will get hot. Find shades, park underground. Now it's a sport package, so it's got the black wheels. It's really got a nice setup, and under the hood, it's old school. You open the hood, and it doesn't have those annoying struts that break and fall and hit you in the head. You stick it in, you can put it wherever you want. You put it up here. But you can put it higher if you're ever doing any work. Not that they break down much. Look, it's tried and true technology. It works. And what does it have? It has an Earth Dreams technology, V6 engine, but it has one thing a purist doesn't like. You look inside here, what do you see? It's a plastic cover because it's got a timing belt. Now, it works perfectly fine, but it's a rubber timing belt. You have to change it. They tell you to change it every 100,000 miles. They're interference engines. If the belt breaks, pistons hit the valves and bend them. Everybody else in the world's going to timing change, but I guess Honda's still thinking, well, we're going to electrify, so we don't want to retool everything to put a timing chain engine. I mean, Toyota, Nissan, everybody's putting chains on, but they're still using rubber timing belts. They work fine. If you buy a used one and it's higher mileage, you're going to have to pay some serious scratch. Usually it's well over $1,000 to change the belt out, because if it breaks, you can say goodbye engine. They're still doing it that way. Well, what can you do? He can get 27 miles a gallon driving on a highway. And for a vehicle this big, this fast, it rides that well, that's good gas mileage. They're not gas hogs. You get a big vehicle, that's the best they're ever going to get. The only way you could get better gas mileage is if you went hybrid. Like my son's got a hybrid Sienna, and he gets 36 miles a gallon in town, not on a highway. Good gas mileage for a vehicle this size. It's not one of these gas hogs like some of the ones I've shown lately that get 13, 12 miles a gallon. 27 is pretty good for a vehicle of this size. And this guy really spent his time researching it. He got one, it's got the basic headlights. There's an LED bulb, that's it. It's not a whole LED assembly that costs a small fortune when it goes bad. And the same thing with his fog lamps. There's just one LED bulb in there. If you're curious about LED prices for any car, call up a dealer with the make and model and say, how much is the headlight assembly with the LED system? You'll probably just drop on the floor thinking, I can get a bulb for $50. Why do I want to spend $800, $900, or $1,000 for this assembly? Much better design this way. Sometimes they get too carried away with their designs. They look great, but then when they break and you got to fork out the money, you'd wish it just had a simple bulb. After all, what's the purpose? To light the road so you can see where you're going. You're not supposed to care about, oh, look, it really looks phenomenal when people see me coming. No, you want to see what's happening. These work perfectly fine. Why put too much technology into it? It has start, stop. You can disable it. Just push that. Now it's disabled and it won't turn itself off. I hate those things. Now I kind of like the fisheye lens that he's got on this Pioneer setup. It's kind of cool looking. And a space aging. It's got very good resolution for a $100 system. High up in the air vehicle, so going over our big lump here isn't going to bother it at all. Just bounces around a little. I really wouldn't take it off-road, but theoretically you can. And we're going down these bumpy roads. The body moves around because it's absorbing shocks, but the ride is very comfortable. And it does have that big Honda V6, so when you wait for the traffic to get through, which here takes quite some time because it's a very busy road, but when it finally clears out enough and you step on the gas, you can hear it spinning the gravel. Nice sound, quick shifts. And this is the sport version. It's a very sporty vehicle. It rides fine, it handles like a dream, it's got very good handling. As we go along, like I said, you want to go, you step on the gas, this thing goes. Makes a nice sound too. You can see here, I'm not making up about the gas mileage. Coming over here, he was averaging 27.2 miles a gallon, which I found kind of amazing considering how fast and fun this thing is to drive. It's not a gas hog, gets good gas mileage, got plenty of power, and it does have all-wheel drive. And realize one thing, even though they have the same name, this Passport has nothing to do with the original rebadged Isuzu Rodeo. On those, the four-wheel drive system, you had to stop the vehicle in order to engage the four-wheel drive. This is all electronic, run by computers. You don't have to do anything except push a button. They're fun to drive, they get pretty good gas mileage or something this big. You're looking for a big family hauler, hey. You go back to 1999, these Suburbans were rock solid. Now, a guy just bought this for only $5 grand. The body's in immaculate shape. Solid as can be. That's just superficial rust. They built these things solid. This guy's the third owner, but really only the second owner. An old man had it for ages. Then a guy bought it and flipped it. He only owned it for a month, and he just bought it as it stands now. You do have to check the frames out, because if they're up north, a lot of them will rot away. This obviously came from down south somewhere. There's no rust on it at all. And that is a big deal on these, because the old ones, they can rust up north. This one, no, it's solid. Now realize the original Suburban, we're going back like 1935. They were the first Suburbans just based on a truck. As you can see by the picture, they're a truck frame, and they turned them into what their idea of a station wagon was back in the day. A big, trucky station wagon. It's the longest produced vehicle in America, the Suburban. They're still making them. And they always were big, giant vehicles. Certainly you can carry a lot of stuff in them. Sure, they get bad gas mileage because they're big vehicles. That's how these things are. But the engines, the transmissions back in the day, like this, 99, they were solid built. They weren't using those Mexican-made rear-end differentials that would just wear out too fast because they built them too sloppy. These are solid built vehicles. If they're not rusted, they can go a long way. Now, sure, the leather seats rip. That's going to happen, you know. Still works. Look, goes back and forth. This was a pretty luxurious vehicle in its time back in 99. 128,748.3 miles on it. We'll start her up. And yes, he's done something to the exhaust. It's a racing Suburban. He put Flowmasters on it. I gotta say, it does sound impressive. The paint's still good. It's still shining away. Although the chrome's seen better days. It's got some little aluminum tape on it. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. It's got all kinds of room. He's got the other seat taken out, but you can see, you can put them back in. You can carry an awful lot of people. Hey, the rear AC and heat still work. Now you notice this is a different color. Well, that's because he had another Suburban that just rotted out, and there was nothing left. And he wanted to keep some of his cool parts from the old one, so he bolted them on here. His original one was a different color. It's a 99, but it's still fuel injected. It's going to be a little bit heavier on the gas use. They're not as efficient, so he doesn't know what he's getting because he's afraid of finding out. So we don't know. We're guessing 12, 13, but it just filled it up coming over here, and it cost him $175 to fill it up. So not a cheap gas bill for this thing. But when you consider he paid $5 grand for it, he just got it. And the engine sounds this good. Since he only paid $5 grand for it, he's got a lot of money left over to buy gasoline. These things are better made than the newer ones are, by far. Numero uno, they're not made in Mexico. And that's a big deal as far as I'm concerned. And I have to agree by the lack of corrosion, that's just rusted heathers. And the clean frame below certainly was a Southern car, or maybe Arizona. Now this is a four-wheel drive vehicle, as you can see. You go neutral, two-wheel high, four-wheel low, or even auto four-wheel drive. Now we look in the back, boy, there is a lot of room in the back of this. You can certainly sleep in it, have parties in it, and if you want, you can put the third row seats in and put a whole bunch of people in it. And if you really want to extend things, you can throw the wings out. You can pretend it's a Tesla. Look at that idle, smooth as can be. Check engine lights on, we'll check that later just to see what nonsense that is. High up in here, four-wheel drive. We can fly over my little berm here. And yes, it does ride like a boat. So happy sailing. And yeah, the handling leaves a bit to be desired. Look, you can turn the wheel and it's still pretty much going straight. Now, it's a big heavy vehicle, but when you step on the gas, oh, that sounds good. It gets up and goes. That's not a race car. It weighs an awful lot. But you feel safe and secure in this thing, let me tell you. I'm not worried about anybody plowing into me. So here we have the Suburban, perfect for a suburban neighborhood. Well, I'd say he got a heck of a deal. It didn't have any exhaust when he bought it. Now, with what he put on it, it really sounds sweet. Now the check engine light was on, so let's check that. No, it's a 99. It just plugs in. And here we go. It says the catalytic converter is below efficiency. Okay, it still does have a catalytic converter. The efficiency is below threshold. It could easily be an oxygen sensor. It runs perfectly fine. Let's look at the data and see what's actually happening. So we'll start it up. And what do we have? The short-term fuel trim is 0%. Fuel trim for the other bag, too. It's subtracting 0.8, 0.16. That's not bad at all. These do have a tendency of running a little bit rich. They're not as efficient. They tend to run a little bit rich as they age. He could put some cleaner in it, but I mean, it runs so good, and when you rev it up, you can hear a little backfire. See, that's showing you it is running a little bit rich. Now, just because of the age on this thing, if it was mine, I'd probably just go get fuel injectors. And I'd just say, what the heck, I'd put in new fuel injectors. You could try cleaning them and stuff, but he does go through an awful lot of gas, and that would be the only simple thing that could get a little bit better gas mileage, would be putting new fuel injectors. So now, if you don't care that much about gas mileage and you want something that's comfy, you're going to go all over. Maybe you're taking kids to a soccer game. Let me tell you, nothing says class like an old Suburban that's got good paint job. People look at you when you drive down the road. They wave at you. You can't buy class in a new vehicle. They all look the same. Back from 1935 when they first made them, this may be the pinnacle. I do have to say, probably 99 would be my pick if I was going to get one, because it's got fuel injection, it's got a decent transmission, but it doesn't have all the plastic crap that the new ones have. It isn't made in Mexico. Pretty solid built vehicles that you can still get parts for. Everything's readily available, interchangeable with a lot of other GM parts, big old V8 engine that you can fix when you have to, but you heard this thing practically not broken in. It's running so smooth. So you're looking for something like this, go old. Don't go new. New's a mistake with a Suburban. Every customer I have that bought a late model one in the last 10 years, transmission broke. Oh, it's burning oil now. These old ones, they're rock solid. You can find one that was a Southern car like this with no rust on the frame. Eat it up. Even if you get tired of it, somebody else will buy it from you down the line. Especially if you can get it for something like this for $5 grand. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.